The following is a GoPowercat.com production.
Man, Big 12 basketball never ceases to surprise anybody. When you think that you get three teams, Houston, Texas Tech, and KU all playing at home, you're thinking, okay, everybody's going to hold serve. Nope. Two of them go down. We got Texas Tech here. We're talking Texas Tech today. Big 12 basketball is absolutely incredible. This is the Big 12 Insiders.
Welcome to the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show, presented by Synergy Financial Partners. Now let's go to booming North Texas, home of Studio 73. Here's your host, Brien Hanley.
All right, welcome back to Big 12 Insiders. This is your man, Big B, Brien Hanley. Today we've got Jarret Johnson, who covers Texas Tech for 24/7 Sports. Jarret, how you doing today?
Pretty good. How you doing, Brien?
I am doing all right. Thank you for taking the time today. Just want to remind everybody again, Tuesday through Friday, Big 12 Insiders. We are a Big 12 show. Please come and subscribe, like, most importantly, comment, get all the good stuff. It helps us with the algorithm. We appreciate everybody's support. But Jarret, let's dive into this a little bit. Last night, Texas Tech, man, first of all, it was a wild game. Maybe I'll just let you explain. I don't want to try to come up with what happened. I will let you explain exactly what is going on with Texas Tech basketball right now, because they seem to have hit a little snag here as of late.
Yeah, they've hit a big snag. First off, they're just beat up. Warren Washington being out is just a huge blow. I don't want to make excuses because everybody's dealing with injuries. And really, before I get into that, and Tech fans aren't going to like this, but I really believe this. Texas came to play last night. They were the more aggressive team. They were quicker to the ball, and they jumped on Tech from the get-go. They knew they were going into a hostile environment. Texas Tech had owned UT on the hardwood for the last 4 or 5 years, to be honest, for the most part. They even beat Texas and Austin by double digits to open Big 12 play. But Texas jumped on Tech early, and they never really let up. They were leading by almost 29 at one point, almost 30 points at one point. And, you got to give them credit, they deserve it. But as far as what's going on with Texas Tech right now, they're beat up. Chance McMillan missed the last game as well with a hip injury. He's their sixth man. He's a really good player for Texas Tech. Warren Washington, though, and I can't remember. Of course, we do a lot of these interviews, podcasts, radio shows, all kinds of stuff. But somebody at some point in the last month asked me who I thought was the most important player for Texas Tech. And I said Warren Washington, because they just don't have a lot of depth in the front court. He's the only guy who provides what he does for Texas Tech this year in terms of rim protection. And then on the offensive end, he's a big part in terms of an outlet. He's a big facilitator, actually, even from his center spot, and helps offensive boards, clears a lot of space, sets screens, all those things that are really important that aren't really sexy. And they've been without Warren in that capacity, and it's really hurting Texas Tech. Add on to that, like I said, Texas really got up in Texas Tech's guards' faces and defended Pop Isaacs, Joe Toussaint very well. And that's the recipe. That's why Texas won big and really had control of that game. But Texas Tech needs to get healthy. That's what they need to do. And they need to get healthy in a hurry because, it's almost March.
Right. Well, the one thing, and I know we've talked about it, and I've said it on several of these podcasts, is Texas, if not the most talented team in the conference, they're one of the most talented teams in this entire conference. They just hadn't put it all together. And I look at Joe Lunardi's, bracketology. You take that for what it's worth, although Joe Lunardi is pretty accurate on his picking. Now, whether he gets the information or not, we can leave that up for a different debate at a different time. But he's pretty accurate. He has Texas firmly in the tournament, not one of those where it's on the outside looking in, the first four out or on the bubble. He's got them firmly in the tournament. And last night's game just kind of enforced that a little bit. And Tech, like I said, they've hit a snag, but you're right. Got to get healthy. I wanted you to kind of explain that, because coming from me, people think I'm making excuses for them. And I don't want anybody thinking that. It's just injuries are part of it. It's a real thing. And anybody that thinks that it's not, they're kidding themselves, But I think Tech is going to be in the tournament, so they're not in any danger of missing out on the tournament. It doesn't matter if they lose out. They're going to be in the tournament. Getting it turned around, other than getting healthy, Jarret, is there anything else that you see that maybe fans may or may not see that they need to start doing better?
Well, the defensive boards has been fans see that that's been a problem, all season long. And I don't know if there's a anecdote for Texas Tech this season. They just may not have the personnel.
Sure,
now, there's some more effort they can provide. The student body camped out for at least a night or two leading up to the game last night. And Texas Tech has played with a lot of effort and resiliency, really overachieved this year.
Okay.
For a number of reasons, in my opinion. And you didn't see that last night in terms of the effort, whether they're tired or whatever excuses. But bottom line is they need to play harder. I know that's an oversimplification, but Texas showed up ready to play. Right. They played with incredible intensity and effort, and you just didn't see that from Tech until it got chippy. Once it got chippy, Tech kind of turned it on, and you saw how Tech can play, and that was too late. You can't do that in this conference,
right?
Against Texas, Kansas State, doesn't really matter,
right?
They got to play at West Virginia and at Oklahoma State. If they play with the type of effort and energy they did after the technicals and the drama, then they'll probably win those games. If they don't, they'll get beat. So to me, that's the number one. Well, the two things: they got to get healthy, and they got to play, with maximum effort in order to win this league.
Well, there's a lot of teams like that, Jarret, in this conference where they're good teams when they play at their maximum effort level. But when they don't, then it becomes a problem. That's not I don't even think it's a Big 12 problem, Jarret. I think that's a college basketball problem in general, is that sometimes teams see, another team, the front of the jersey, and look at the record, and they think, oh, well, we don't have to play with Everett. Now, I'm not saying that was a problem last night, because it wouldn't matter if Texas had never won a game in the history of mankind. Texas Tech is going to try to beat their brains in. So that's a different conversation. But, yeah, I think that's more of a college thing. But moving on to the next part of this, now the Big 12 tournament's coming up, and that kind of is what it is. But tournament chances, what are people and fans thinking? And I'm talking about the big dance. Are people still excited? I know they've hit this little snag here as of late. Are people still excited as what they were a couple of weeks ago about the NCAA tournament?
I think they should be. It's basketball. You mentioned basketball. And going back to that real quick before we go to this, is the big difference between the Big 12, in my humble opinion, and several other conferences out there, is the margin for error is so much slimmer. Night in and night out. It really is, compared to where maybe you don't play your best, or you don't have the max effort at first, and you kind of turn it on and you're able to win. You can't do that in this league. But to answer your question, yeah, they should be. It's basketball, man. There are so many peaks and valleys to a season where you just the old cliche, you want to be hot at the right time. Yeah. Tech started out really well in the Big 12, really hot. Then there was, they lost 3 in a row. They had the flu bug that really came through. And then some teams beat them. Like I said, very slim margin for error in this league. And then they won some big games. They blew out Kansas. They edged TCU even without Warren Washington. That was a big win. Mm-hmm. Now they've lost a couple by double digits, and haven't looked good doing so. So now let's see if they can build back up at the right time. Maybe win a game or two in the Big 12 tournament, get that confidence going, and then hopefully get the right matchups in March Madness, because that's really oftentimes what it comes down to, is just getting hot at the right time, having the right matchup, and then get a little lucky here or there. That helps as well.
Absolutely. And one of the things that you brought up, Jarret, is talking about the Big 12 versus other conferences, is that the margin for error. We're seeing a lot of parity. Usually in years past, teams that lose 9, 10, 11 games, they're on the fringe of making the tournament. Not this year. Teams that are losing anywhere between 8 and 11 games, I've seen them all the way up to a 5 seed in the NCAA tournament this year. And that's where I think that the Big 12 can have an advantage, is because people are going to look at a team like Tech. Oh, okay, they haven't played great here the last couple of weeks. They've lost some games. They're going to go into this thing with maybe 11 or 12 losses. Okay, we can relax a little bit. And then you get into that game, and Tech's going to beat you by 20 points. I go, so I just think it's one of those years here, not just in the Big 12, but overall, I think the Big 12, Jarret, has an advantage over because our conference is so tough, and that the parity that you see in our conference is much different and much better than what you see in other conferences around the country.
Yeah, that's a good point. It kind of goes back to, I can't help but go back to football analogies, like when coaches talk about toughening guys up for the season by practicing in a physical manner. Do you want to beat your guys up and maybe they're injured and maybe not, or do you want to toughen them up? What's the right philosophy?
Sure.
One or two things could happen by Big 12 beating each other up. It could be bad, but then again, it could toughen up some teams too. So when they get in the tournament, they're ready, as they're not as shocked by the intensity of the tournament. So, it's going to be interesting to see. It's also like a bye week in football. If a team's hot and they go into a bye and then all of a sudden they can't find their mojo, or maybe it comes at just the right time. They get the break they need. They come back re-energized. So I think you can make arguments on both sides. My opinion, I'm with you. I think I'd rather be toughened up, ready to go, be battle hardened, whatever. Whatever cliche you want to use, toughened up and ready to play, so you're not shocked in the tournament. Because I've seen it with some players where they coast, or some teams they coast into the tournament. Maybe they beat somebody they're supposed to handle in terms of talent wise. Then they get in to say like a medium level, say Big 12 or Big East back in the day team, and they can't handle the intensity. They just they get shocked, and before they can recover, they lost. So I'm with you, man. I'd rather be toughened up than cakewalk and fully healthy and all that.
Absolutely. It's just the way that I grew up, Jarret. Like I said, I grew up in Louisville. I was a Louisville fan, and Denny Crum believed in the regular season, you play anybody, anywhere, at any time, because it's going to battle test you. Well, he learned that from John Wooden, and that was their thing. Now, granted, UCLA just had more talent than everybody, so that's a little different deal. But you just play everybody, let the chips fall where they may. If you're a good team, you're going to win some. That's the thing, Jarret, is some people think, well, you play all these tough teams. It's almost like they think you're going to lose all these tough games. I'm like, well, if you lose all of them, then you're probably not very good anyway. That's the whole thing. So playing tough games and playing tough competition is okay if you're a good team, because you are going to come out on top of a lot of those games. It's just a matter of, look, you can't beat everybody every night. People aren't going undefeated anymore. That's not the way this thing works. It's just too much. There's way too much parity. College basketball, which I like. I love the fact that we don't just have, go into the season, this team's going to win it, and then they win it, and there's no surprise or anything like that. I like the fact that Purdue got beat by Fairleigh Dickinson last year in the first round of the tournament. I like that kind of stuff. So I'm excited.
Unless you're a Purdue fan.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm excited for Texas Tech. I think Texas Tech is one of the tougher teams in the country. Tougher teams. I mean, and so I'm just going to kind of ask you about last night, because I know a lot of people are wanting to know. I saw it. I don't know if a lot of people saw it, and I'll just throw my opinion out there. It was one of the dirtiest plays I think I've ever seen, Jarret, on a basketball court. I mean, it was like a football play, somebody hitting somebody late in a football play up against a barrier, because he hit the guy right and pushed him into I'm just like, what are we doing out here? And there was he wasn't going for the ball. Anybody that says that is lying. He just literally threw his shoulder into him, trying to hurt him. Am I wrong?
No, it's a dirty play by a dirty player. I think what was said about him is true. I mean, I admire his hustle and all of that, but there's a long history with Cunningham and Texas Tech. When Chris Beard made his first return, of course, the fans were ready for the bus and all that, and he was egging on the fans and all that. And all night, last night, the fans and him were at each other. He's just a guy who is not liked. Let's be honest. Right. It's not like it's unique to Texas Tech either. I mean, he's one of the guys around and I think he revels in it. And that play specifically, if you watch it, if you played sports, it was a dirty play. Yes. You could tell he made up his mind. He was going to go check. Darian Williams, who is like an all-time great guy. He's one of the best guys in any walks of life you'll meet. He's lucky he hit him, because there are some guys on Tech's teams in the past where they would have been a bench clearing brawl. Like, I'm shocked, to be honest. Like, it really is a testament to the rest of the guys on both those teams that they didn't get into a fight. Because I know how I would have reacted if somebody hit me like that, a cheap shot on me.
Yeah.
But Darren Williams is he didn't like it, and he let him know he didn't like it. But being the class act and such a good guy that he is, it didn't escalate. Now, I hate that the fans threw stuff, but they were emotional. It's Texas. There's no excuse for that, for throwing stuff either. I mean, that's
right.
Equally, I feel bad about that, throwing stuff at the players and everything. I don't like it.
No.
But that was a dirty play. And then he was kind of waving, egging them on after that. So it's like, I mean, I'm not excusing throwing things on the court or field of play ever. I hate that. But I get why it happened. Dirty play, emotions running high, and then you're egging them on. That's the result.
Yeah. Well, the thing that drives me insane about all that is he did it and then turned immediately and was like, what are you talking about? Kind of put his hands up like, what? It wasn't even anything. I was just going for the ball. And we're like, come on, man. Look, we're all adults.
Back to Darien, too. I hated,
yes.
I mean, you're going to get me in trouble. You keep asking me about this because, there's a bros code. If you're going to do that, then you look somebody in the eye. You face up.
That's right.
You don't turn your back and, it was bad all around. The reaction from the crowd was bad. I hate that it happened, but that's part of sports. And it was an emotional night.
It is. Well, we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back on the other side, change topics and talk a little bit about football, a little recruiting, and a little spring ball, and just take a quick break and come back and talk a little football on the other side. We'll hear from our partners here at Synergy Financial Partners.
At Synergy Financial Partners, the mission is to change the way Americans plan for their financial future. Synergy doesn't just offer you a financial plan. At Synergy, the goal is to help you find your best financial future. Learn more at synergyfinancial.com.
Welcome back to the show. Let's head back to the studio.
All right, welcome back to Big 12 Insiders. Again, we have Jarret Johnson here who covers Texas Tech for 24/7 Sports with us. So changing speeds just a little bit, talking a little bit of football. I know that it's right in the heart of basketball season, but I don't think anybody ever gets tired of talking about football. So spring is right around the corner. First thing is, does Texas Tech, Jarret, are they having a traditional spring game? I know a lot of schools do and don't these days. Is Texas Tech, are they going to participate in that?
They are, but there's a lot of renovations going on. They're, $320 million or so. I can't remember the exact total. It keeps growing. The project, they're redoing the south end zone of the stadium, the Jones here, brand new football facility. It's all going to be connected via skywalk with their indoor facility. So bottom line is they're in portables. I think Kansas State, actually, when they dressed here at Texas Tech, they had to use those portables. That's what Tech's using for spring. And then the actual spring game is going to be in Midland, which is a big alumni base. A lot of oil money is from Midland, to be quite honest. So they're going to play their spring game, which is a great idea. And they've done it before in the past, but they're going to do it again this year. They're going to have their spring game in Midland at a big high school stadium.
Very, very nice. So is there any, I mean, a lot of times, and schools do it a little bit differently. Some schools, look, we get as many guys in, we put in as much as we can during the spring, and we have actual spring ball battles for positions. And then we try to solidify that stuff once we get into summer camp and training camp. Is Texas Tech, do they have any battles that they are looking for, or is this more of a, you know what, we just want to get the guys out there. We got 15 practices, including the spring game. We just want to get people acclimated to what we are doing and try to get guys better, more of a developmental type of spring.
No, competition abounds. So there's some guys who have spots not locked up. I'm not going to say that, but
sure,
I expect them to start on opening day if healthy, for sure. But on the offensive line and the secondary specifically, maybe some on the defensive line, they have some guys that they know are going to figure in, but there's going to be some competition as well as some spots. I think the left tackle spot, I believe, is going to be a big competition. They brought in some guys to the transfer portal. In the secondary, they're replacing a lot of veterans. So there's going to be some serious competition in those two areas. I definitely think that's something that coaches want to promote, some more than others. And McGuire is all about that. He talks about that constantly, the competition at every position. Some of that's coach speak, as you know, but some of it's not. I mean, just the way that they rotated some starters last year, some guys you thought would be locks for starters, they got benched for a game or here or there because the other guy outplayed him in practice. So he put his money where his mouth was last year. And sometimes those young guys stepped up, and I think it could help this upcoming season. But I love spring football, and just being a football fan, I love covering spring football because that's nowadays the way the calendar is. That's when they hit. That's when they really hit. Now, how much access we get to it varies from spring to spring. Sometimes we see pretty good amount. Sometimes we don't see any at all. But I'm hoping to see a lot of hitting this spring and see who really wants to play next season for Texas Tech.
See, you are the same way that I am, Jarret. Look, I come from and played for Bill Snyder, so I come from that realm. Spring, it was, look, you want to play? You better show me something in the spring because you'll get buried in the depth chart when it comes time for summer. Spring is not a time. We're going to develop you, don't get me wrong, but it's competition, and whoever, it's man on man, good versus good. There was none of the, okay, well, the ones are going to play against the twos and or anything. That was not how spring was. And to me, I think you have to go into it that way and see who wants to compete, because there's so much competition everywhere. If you don't do it like that, I'm not saying that you can't do it another way, but at the same time, look, Texas Tech, Iowa State, TCU, Houston, Kansas State, Kansas, they're all kind of in that same type of realm where we're developing guys. So there's no better time to develop players than during the spring, Jarret. No better time.
Yeah, and I love that philosophy. I mean, if just I try and put myself in the perspective of either the player or the coach or both, depending on what situation we're talking about. If you're a player, I can't help it. Most of the time, that's where I come from, is like what a player would think.
Sure.
Why would you not want open competition? Because it's on you.
Absolutely.
If you perform, if you step up, if you're available, because some guys can't stay healthy, and that's a big part of it as well. If you're available, if you play hard, if you do all the right things, then you should earn a spot. You should earn playing time.
Right.
Rather than promises made in recruiting or a coach brought in his guy, or you know what I mean? You want open competition where you can prove yourself and earn that playing time.
Right. That's where I love the Big 12. Now that the new Big 12, OU and Texas are out. I love that fact of it, Jarret, because it's going to be more of a developmental type of conference. And when I say developmental, I mean, everybody's not going to have 10 or 12 5-stars on their football team.
Right.
It's going to be coaching, developing. Everybody's going to be in that same realm. It doesn't mean you don't have really talented football players or a talented football team. It just means, hey, we value development. We value a freshman coming in and developing him and seeing where he's at as a junior. I think that kind of culture is what's going to carry the Big 12 moving forward, and all this crazy realignment stuff is we just band together and say, this is what our conference is. I'll go, you can have yours. You can have yours. This is what we are. And I think doing it that way, and Texas Tech, like I said, it's in Texas, and Texas has an abundance of high school football talent, an abundance. I kind of think, and I'll be honest, do they have a leg up when it comes to that kind of stuff now that Texas and OU, they're going to get the people that they're going to get. But are kids going to say, you know what, in the DFW, I'm just going to go out to Texas Tech now. I would rather stay here. I want to be in the Big 12. Will they have a leg up in that? That's a question I've been getting a lot, Jarret.
Well, they have a leg up because of their coaching staff and the recruiting personnel. Joey McGuire and some of the assistant coaches on his staff, they have great relationships throughout the Texas high school football landscape and with all the coaches. Their general manager, James Blanchard, is really doing things in a completely different way. And I think some other programs have tried to duplicate what Texas Tech has done. They've signed 2 top 25 classes seemingly out of nowhere for Texas Tech. Right now, their 2025 class is ranked 13th in the country with 9 commits already. They already have 25 guys ready to come take officials who've already, told me that they're going to take official and on social media official visits in June. So they're like way ahead of the curve in the way they do things. And that's what's going to help them in terms of keeping Texas talent, in the Big 12.
Right.
All 13 of those guys that are commits, all 9 of those guys that are commits for that 13th ranked class in 2025 are in the Texas top 115. So most of them are in the Texas top 100. And you're talking about a dang good football player if you're in the Texas top 115.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what people don't know, they look at Lubbock and think, oh, it's out in the middle of nowhere. It's not that far from Dallas. It's not that far from all from Dallas. Matter of fact, when I moved here, there were so many people that were alumni from Texas Tech.
Yeah.
And because that was my first thought. I'm like, you went way out there? And they're like, Brien, it's not that far. It's like 3.5, 4 hour drive. And I'm like, oh, I go, it isn't that far. And when you're talking about going to college, a lot of kids go that far away. So, depending on where their fan base or where their family base and all that stuff is, I don't know. To me, I think Lubbock and Texas Tech, I think kind of what you said, having those relationships, I think they may have a leg up. Now, granted, there's other Texas schools and all that stuff. Yeah. I just think Texas Tech is really set up nicely. I'm taking a look at their schedule here, Jarret. Sets up pretty good. I don't know what Washington State's going to have. I don't know. They're going to have a good team or a team. I don't know how great a team that they're going to have. You go out to Pullman early in the season. So we'll see how that goes. But I'm just kind of looking at it. It sets up well. The Big 12 kind of is what it is. There's going to be some good teams, some bad teams, but I don't think it's not anything that they can't handle. What are the expectations out there for fans once the schedule came out?
Well, it's interesting because there was a lot of big talk, and from Joey McGuire himself, he did not shy away from saying, from any of the dark horse of the Big 12 type talk. And then they lost to Wyoming and they lost to Oregon before they even got in the conference. And they finished with 7 wins in the regular season. So under expectations. So I think most fans that I've talked with, they see the schedule and they say, hey, that's 8 or 9 wins, as a floor. But then also they're cautioned by, well, that's what we thought last year. That was all the talk and the hype. So I think this offseason, kind of a quiet confidence rather than a louder confidence in terms of the opportunity. The schedule does set up well. There's 2 byes, which is nice. Can't remember the last time Texas Tech had 2 byes in terms of the schedule and things working. Yeah, it's weird. So I think they like it. I really do. I think they like the home schedule in terms of there's not like any heavyweight, but those are winnable games. In terms of wins and losses, Texas Tech has a pretty good opportunity to have a very good season next year on paper.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate it, Jarret, for you taking the time today, man. I know it's super busy during this time of year, so we appreciate any time that you give us. I know you've been on a couple of times, and we will always have you back, my man. Thank you very much.
Hey, Brien, I love being on. This show is great. The feedback from the fans have been tremendous. People really like the show and the job you're doing. So keep it up. And anytime I can come on, I'd love to. Thank you.
No problem. We'll take one quick break here, and we will end the show after we hear another word from our partners with Synergy Financial.
At Synergy Financial Partners, the vision is to build the world's largest consumer financial education and empowerment company. Synergy doesn't just offer you a financial plan. At Synergy, the goal is to help you find your best financial future. Learn more at synergyfinancial.com.
Welcome back to the show. Let's head back to the studio.
All right. Welcome back again to Big 12 Insiders. So it's very interesting talking to Jarret. Texas Tech is one of those schools that, it kind of sits out there a little bit in the panhandle of Texas. But again, it's not that far from the DFW. It's not that far out away from what people would classify as civilization. I know I've said it on several occasions that I think Houston is kind of a hidden gem and new in the Big 12, but watch out for Texas Tech, people. Just keep your eye on Texas Tech. With Texas gone and OU gone, and with the relationships that Jarret had just told us about, that as far as football, what they've made, they're always going to be there in both sports, but just look for them to take a little jump here and maybe jump into the upper echelon of the Big 12 as far as basketball and football. So we appreciate everybody taking the time out again to join us and watch Big 12 Insiders. Again, as always, we're on Tuesday through Friday, at 1 p.m. Central. Tell your friends, come join us. We are a Big 12 show make sure that you come and subscribe, like all those comments. We'll keep bringing these out. One thing is we are going to come back tomorrow, and hopefully we do it better. Talk to you later.
This has been a GoPowercat.com and Spirit Street production. Please support this show by subscribing to this YouTube channel or follow us on your favorite podcast platform.